Welcome to Figure Skating Land. This week, I'm going to be talking about Legacy on Ice. Legacy on Ice was such a beautifully well done event. Everyone did an amazing job at honoring the victims of the plane crash. This was so well put together, and it's hard to believe they had such a small time frame of organizing it and then pulling it off. It was just great. I mean, they really thought of everything. Not only did they pay tributes to the skaters. When I first arrived, I saw that they had paid tributes to the first responders. I think it was really nice to have the first responders there and to honor them during the show, but also they really thought of everything. There were therapy dogs there. I saw some pictures of where Amber Glenn and I think other skaters were hugging the dogs. These dogs were the sweetest ever. And I very much enjoyed getting to see them, knowing how heavy this event was going to be that I was walking into. Just a real quick disclaimer before we get started. These are the videos that I took while I was in arena. None of these are screen recorded, and I'm not going to be showing full performances. What was really heartwarming to see is how many skaters from many different walks of life were here. There were the legends that we always hear about, and there were also skaters who do theater. And of course, even, On Ice Perspectives is a skater, and he came out to show his support by filming. So kind of all these different avenues came together, and that was really nice to see. The event was hosted by Brian Boitano and Christina. They did a really nice job of handling the appropriate atmosphere for the event, being solemn, but also supportive and demonstrating kind of togetherness. This was also a sold out packed show, which was so good to see that many people coming to support the skaters and the first responders and the victims of the plane crash. It was just a very nice thing to see. The event started with Amber Glenn, and I noticed was difficult for her not only because of victims of the plane crash, but also she lost her grandmother. She put on a beautiful performance despite everything. She teared up at the end, but I'm hoping, that was therapeutic for her. And like I mentioned earlier, she got to hug one of the therapy dogs. So I'm glad that those dogs could be there for her and many others. Johnny Weir came out of retirement just for this event. It's heartbreaking because I can't remember if he shared it on Instagram or I just saw him tagged in it. Some of the victims of the plane crash had taken selfies excitedly with him, and he got to meet them. And Johnny seems honestly, genuinely like a very sweet person. I know there's kind of the persona when he is commentating, but anytime I have interacted with him in person, he's been extremely polite. And you can tell that he is genuinely torn up about this. Sofia coming out in Everly Livingston's dress and skating in honor of the Livingston sisters and their parents and her coach was heartbreaking. I had stumbled upon some social media posts of her grieving both her coach and her friends, and it is just amazing that she was able to come out here and not only skate with all that going on, but also knowing that she's on TV. So what a brave girl. She did an amazing job, and it was a beautiful skate. And then when the Washington Figure Skating Club came out to give a tribute to their coach, that was beautiful, but also just heart-wrenching, but beautiful. Emily and Ian did, I believe, parts of their free program, and it was beautiful. Jason Brown also came out for this event. It was so good to see him. I was worried that we wouldn't see him, honestly, for the rest of the season. He said later in an interview that this made him think about his grandfather. He said, "My grandfather will always tell me that when people come together and you share your wins and your victories together, they double. And when you share the losses and you share the tragedies, these sorrows get cut in half. And that's kind of how I feel coming together." Then we got to see Kitty and Peter Carruthers, and then a surprise revival from Scott Hamilton.
I just wanted to pray.
Coming from West Virginia, I see these all the time at sporting events while I did it growing up. It felt awkward because it just kept going. I wish he would have said something like, regardless of what religion you participate in, let's have a moment of silence, and maybe you can do kind of whatever your practice is. And then we had a pretty abrupt transition into Imagine. Nathan Chen made an appearance here, and so did several other skaters. Brian Boitano led us into a moment of silence with such a beautiful lit up arena. And it was really nice to see it in pictures later, just to see kind of the whole panorama of lights. The fabulous Peggy Fleming introduced Isabella Aparicio. She skated in honor of her brother and her father who were in the plane crash, and she skated to her father's recording of Cain and Dean. This is where many of us, including myself and the audience, we were already tearing up, but this one was definitely a tearjerker. She is so brave. She did such a great job considering how heavy this must have been for her. Sarah Everhart came out and did one of her galas that I've seen earlier in this year. There were a lot of discussions about, is this appropriate? But my thinking is, she just got back from more continents. Likely didn't have time to come up with a different show program. And you know what? She took the time to skate in honor of people she likely knew. And so that's more important, I feel like. And then Brian Boitano and Richard Dreyer announced Ilia Malinin. I feel like something kind of got lost at some point in cue card existence because they were just like this randomness of don't announce the person when I actually don't think he was going to announce the person yet. I'm just going to go ahead and admit this is actually my first time seeing him skate in person and on TV. I don't know how I missed it in life. And there's also rumors that he might be the person that Gracie Gold referenced in her book, but I still wasn't quite sure about that. He did put on a beautiful performance, especially it was surprising to see how many jumps he still has. Even, of course, I don't know he skated like beforehand, but I'm just assuming he had a lot of the jumps beforehand. I forgot to mention that he skated in honor of Olivia because he was her coach. Afterwards, Katie Macbeth and Daniel Parkman did a beautiful number that felt similar to their free program. And then Johnny came and gave an emotional speech. Capitol Theater on Ice. Now, they did this Angel and Demon program. Just to give some backstory, I saw them earlier in the year. Actually, no, I saw them maybe around the fall time at one of Ilia's ice shows, and they did a similar program. So this is just something that they all year. So I imagine it would be difficult to put on like a different program, but still, like, I don't feel like it was tone deaf. They are really neat to see in person. I've seen them in person actually quite a few times, and I'm hoping that the TV version was able to really translate what they look like. Jeremy Abbott came out, and it was my first time ever seeing him skate in person. And I feel like he's really embraced show skating. And it seems like he kind of has a whole new style now, which is cool. Nancy Kerrigan and Paul Wiley came out. Nancy, we've all been there while trying to, on the spot, pronounce names. I have to always go back and listen. So we get it. They have a really good chemistry with one another. So I could see them hosting shows in the future. And so they introduced Jimmy and Alysa and Misha. Jimmy did it was a very heartfelt program, and he performed Jenna Hall's program that I think she was supposed to do next year. Alysa and Misha did Papa Can You Hear Me? And to be honest, this is the first time I felt like Papa Can You Hear Me has been effective. It may actually translate better into like a gala program. Now that I think about it, it just fits better with the softness and stillness. I imagine this has been very difficult for them because they are members of the Skating Club of Boston. And not only do they have some fellow skaters that they're mourning, but they're also probably witnessing a lot of grief around them. And Max Naumov's number was very emotional to sit through. And just thinking about it now is difficult. When he skated to his his parents' song, and he put out both hands in the beginning, and then just the emotion throughout the number. And then when he seemed like he was near hyperventilating, about hyperventilating on the ice, and then Jimmy, Alysa, and Misha appear. That was all utterly heartbreaking. I don't know how he did it. And that is when I feel like many of us in the audience were at that point. Not that we weren't tearing up beforehand, but that's when a lot of kind of the sobbing happened. He was, beautifully done. I hope that was very therapeutic for him. It's also hard to think about because it's the last time I saw him skate right before that. He was so carefree at U.S. Nationals Gala. So this was such a vast difference. I am very glad that at the end, they were just waiting for him, essentially, and I thought that was a beautiful touch. And then Pokonin even came out here, even though he was injured, and he did a Kostanaya song flashback. He did a very nice job despite probably both the emotional and physical pain that he was experiencing. And then the glowing skaters went out there. They were actually at Extreme on Ice a couple months ago. I think it was around the fall. And I believe they were actually there to honor the first responders. I think they're like a local performance group. And so although they may have felt a little out of place, I know that when the Extreme on Ice, they also did kind of some similar messaging, but like Leesburg and all that. So I think they're just a well-known local community. And I didn't get any pictures of this recognition of first responders, but you can tell that this was emotional for them. And I think it was just very nice for them to be recognized. And then have a perfect transition into Alysa Liu skating to Hero by Mariah Carey, which felt like a blast from the past. Andrew Dorgajev came out and did his short program. Kudos to him and all the other skaters who have worlds so soon coming up who took the time to be here. Don't blame them for not having kind of an emotional song again. I just think it's great that these skaters took the time to be here when they have such a big performance coming up. Development Camp Tribute was also very heartwarming, but also heartbreaking. They skated to I think it was one of the last kind of skating skills classes that they did to Halo. Iben, I hope I'm saying her name correctly. She's an amazing skater. I don't know why I haven't seen her before. Beautiful skating skills. And Gracie Gold and Ashley Cain also joined her. It had to be difficult for those three because I think I saw on Instagram that all three of them were the last people to skate with the development team. And Christina, Carreira, and Anthony Ponomarenko came out and did a beautiful number. Isabeau Levito came out here to be introduced by Queen Nancy Kerrigan. I know there was some fussing online about her skating to breakfast at Tiffany's, but kudos to her. I mean, she just came back from injury, so we wouldn't expect her to be able to throw together whatever program people deem acceptable. And poor girl tried a triple under spotlight. I think she just wanted to show us that she has it. And since filming this, she is going to get to go to the Worlds, which is nice to see her skate again. And it's awesome she took the time, especially after injury, to perform for this. Queen and King of the Ice Dance, Chock and Bates, came out and did their exhibition program to Once I Was Loved. It was a beautiful number as usual. There was a surprise fall that I believe was probably the Sheets' fault. I sat there, it happened very close to me. I thought, did that really happen? And yes, it did, but still didn't distract from the performance. And again, we're going to be at Worlds soon, so kudos to them for coming here so close after 4 continents and in Worlds. It seemed like it was very important for them to be here based upon their responses in the media. Scott Hamilton came out again, but not to do a revival, but this time to introduce Ilia Malinin. Ilia skated to a song called Hope, and good for him for picking a program that he resonates with. There's a lot of complaints online about him picking a rap song, but it seems like this really resonated with him. It seemed very therapeutic for him because he was mad, he was sad, and so I think this was actually a really good fit for him. And I just honestly don't understand how people complain when it's very obvious that this was really helpful for him. And then there was a finale number where we got to see many skaters at once. I was so excited to see Nancy Kerrigan and Paul Wiley because I've never got to see them skate in person. Overall, this was such a wonderful event put on by USFS and Ari, which is Ilia's agent, who I think had a huge role in this. So glad they were able to take the time to honor the very talented kids and their coaches and their families. And I know kind of the elephant in the room is at this point that I'm recording this, it has become known that Dave Lee's from the skating lesson said that these kids were not talented. And I don't want to detract from this beautiful memorial event, but all I'm going to say is I don't know how someone could be gathering up memorial stuff to write on their monetized Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and think about how these kids are not talented. That's not, I'm going to get away from that before I get very upset. Anyway, this was worth the drive for me. I drove down to Partway the night before and then ended up having to drive 5.5 hours back that night from DC to West Virginia. It was worth it so much just to, as a skating fan, get to be there for these skaters and get to help out anyway, even if it is donating to come to this event. And I felt like it was helpful for me because we would see Spencer comment a lot on Reddit. At one point, he even reached out to me about something over the summer for this summer Sizzler event. They saw my video. So this overall, I think, was just really good for the skating community and the skaters. And before I forget, shout out to RCDC on Blue Sky for very appropriately telling me, do not drive into DC. Get on the metro. And thank you for helping me navigate the metro. All right, y'all. Thank you for tuning in. I apologize this wasn't that long. I tried to keep it brief so that I would not get in trouble for using skating clips. And I also didn't want to turn this into a kind of a huge commentary video because I just felt like it'd be more appropriate to focus on the overarching theme. See y'all next time. And I hope to see some of you guys at Worlds.